it's 10 o'clock. I think we should get started. 1.02 is the CNI committee meeting agenda, and we'll hear from English language arts updates and then science updates. 1.03 is public comment. I don't think we have any members of the public here today. We look forward to public comment at future meetings. 1.04 is the draft minutes. I reviewed them, but also was not a member in the December meeting. And Mr. J, I think you were saying you have no changes or additions to the minutes.
I do not, thank you.
Okay, so we'll adopt the minutes as drafted from December 6th. 1.05 is board member comments. Just really excited to serve on curriculum and instruction. I've had 3 years serving on the policy committee, and for my final year on the board, I'm very, very excited to serve on CNI. So let's get into it. 2.01 is English language arts updates.
Yeah, so welcome to the committee. We're glad to have you. We do regular updates to the CNI committee from all of our content areas, as well as programs, things like multilingual learner program. And so today you have 2 presentations, one on English language arts, one on science, that are part of that kind of annual review of where we are in programming. And so I'll introduce Jen Ralston. She's our elementary curriculum specialist for English language arts. And Liz Matheny is our secondary curriculum specialist for language arts. So you're going to get a pre-K through 12 rundown of the latest things happening in our English language arts area. And I will say this has been a very busy area for the last couple of years. We benefited from our Maryland Leads grant, which brought millions of dollars into our work around science of reading, which has been very exciting, as well as commitments from the board over the years have really moved our English language arts program forward at all levels. There's still plenty of work to be done, but we are in the process of preparing to submit our comprehensive literacy plan to the state as part of a blueprint requirement. So I publicly want to thank not only my team here, but people from across the district and multilingual learner program and special education, advanced academics, assessment, intervention have all been contributing to the development of that comprehensive literacy plan. So I want to thank those many, many staff members. Probably about 25 staff members from across the district have been involved in that process. And so we're very excited about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen and Liz to talk a little bit about all things English language arts.
So I'd like everyone to take a minute and read the literacy vision for Frederick County Public Schools. So this vision has really guided our work since it was established in 2019. And I would like to emphasize that we are committed to all students learning to read and write. And one way that we can ensure that all students learn to read is by following the science and bridge research to practice. So you can see here a slide. This was actually presented to the board at the Science of Reading presentation that Dr. Cuppett and Jen Bingman presented a few months ago. And it really guides our work in ELA. And through the Maryland Leads Initiative and your support, we have been able to acquire high quality instructional materials in grades K through 2. This is our first year of implementation of Open Court Reading. It is a comprehensive literacy program for Tier 1 instruction and includes explicit and systematic reading, foundational skills instruction, comprehension, writing, and language. And this is important, this explicit and systematic piece of instruction, because that is what truly aligns to the science of reading.
And Jen, I'll add, as part of the Maryland, these were funded in part through Maryland Leads funds. We added into reading last year that you'll talk about, I'm sure, Jen. But just a reminder to the board that unlike other grant opportunities that we had, all of the materials of instruction had to be approved by the state. and for that alignment to the science of reading. And so we had to submit our materials that we were interested in, and they had to make sure that they met the criteria by the state. So we were pleased that they were able to approve Open Court.
Can you say just a little bit more about open court reading?
What would you like? Do you have a specific question?
I guess I'm not familiar with it at all. Is it a curriculum program that's used nationally?
Oh, yes, it's been around for several decades, and it is aligned to the science of reading in that it has the foundational skills component that is explicit and systematic. There's a sequential scope and sequence with cumulative skills acquired through the grades K through 2. And then it has a reading comprehension and responding piece with the high quality texts, and the texts are connected by theme or topic so that students are building their knowledge, and that's a key component for reading comprehension aligned to the science of reading. And then there is a writing piece that includes explicit handwriting instruction and encoding and spelling, as well as the structure of sentences and then forming paragraphs and the types of writing that align to the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. Then finally, we also have some digital tools for personalized instruction. We are using iReady and Lexia Core 5.
And in that case, schools can choose which tool they think best fits their needs. And just so you'll make that connection, the iReady personalized, MyPath, I think is the name of the platform, is the learning platform. We also use iReady as a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year assessment in English language arts and in mathematics as part of our local assessment framework to monitor progress of students. And so schools can monitor how kids are progressing. We also monitor that centrally as well. And so there's both the iReady assessment, which we use, and then there's the iReady learning tool as well. And in this case, Ms. Ralston's referencing the learning tool part of that.
And in grades 3 through 5, this is our second year of implementation of our high quality instructional materials, and we're using Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Into Reading. It is also a comprehensive literacy program for Tier 1 instruction, includes that reading comprehension and writing instruction, as well as some foundational skills resources, including spelling and speaking and listening. It is standards aligned, content-based reading comprehension, writing, and language. Again, in 3 through 5, they're using the digital tools iReady Reading and Lexia Core 5. And we also have a keyboarding program called Typing Agent in grades 3 through 5, because we know how important those keyboarding skills are when students are using technology and then also taking the assessment MCAT on the computer. So one other important component of implementing the science of reading is preventing reading difficulty. And one way we can do this is through early identification and intervention. And so the Ready to Read Act, or Senate Bill 734, requires that we universally screen students in kindergarten through grade 3, and we provide supplemental instruction and progress monitoring. So we identify students, and then that instruction is based on data and aligned with specific areas of deficit. And then the teachers monitor their progress every 3 weeks and adjust instruction if they're not making progress.
Is the universal screening strictly for dyslexia or for a variety of learning needs?
So it will identify areas of reading difficulty. It does not diagnose dyslexia, but will identify those areas of difficulty that often can be attributed to reading difficulties like phonemic awareness, letter identification, fluency in decoding, and reading connected text.
Is it okay if I keep asking questions while you? And I don't know if you have this data, but I'd be interested if we've had more students or substantially more students identified as having learning challenges, dyslexia, since the universal testing or the universal screening has been implemented.
So you want to know whether there's been an increase of students identified with learning difficulties since the screener has been put in place.
Yeah, it would be interesting on whether we had some effective screenings in place before it was mandated by the state, or whether we've seen, really more students identified now with this
I would think
universal
we could
screening.
probably get that information from Mr. Better's team.
Uh-huh.
Kelly Denty and Brittany Garst are the folks that work in those identified interventions, but my gut says certainly it has. I've seen data over since the universal screener comes in where we have identified more students. So, but I wouldn't want to speculate as to the increase, so we can get that back to you.
Sure. I want to say there's a possibility that the screen may have gone off, and as I can't reach it, just to double check that the Google Meet is still going. And okay, great.
All is well.
Mr. J, you there? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
it went to a different screen, but good. Thank you, Scott.
So building the capacity of our literacy specialists and teachers to implement the science of reading and these materials has been a priority for our team. And I've just listed on the slide some ways that we do that. We have regular full-day meetings with literacy specialists. We've provided training with the programs. Last summer, we had extensive training with Open Court, and then throughout the school year. We also have job-embedded professional learning at the school level through the accelerated learning process, or ALP. You often hear it referred to, ALP, led by literacy specialists. And this year, we were able to provide some substitutes for them to have an extended period of time with the literacy specialists. We are also, the ELA team is also providing support to schools through observations, virtual meetings, and in-person school visits. Our innovation team in CII is providing support to schools implementing the digital tools for personalized learning that I mentioned before, Lexi and iReady. They're also, everybody's doing, CII is doing school visits to gather feedback on implementation. And we also have frequent principal and leadership team meetings to provide support to the schools.
So that's although that was only a handful of slides, I can assure you there's a great deal of work behind each of those bullets. What questions do you have about what's happening in elementary English language arts, Mr. Bass?
Two main questions. What are the best ways for either us as the board or senior staff to evaluate how this I'd say strategic move towards science of reading and new curriculum, to evaluate how it's going?
Well, one, if you're looking at data points, I would look at multiple data points. There are several, and in our CLP, we talked about this, that in the primary grades, you could look at the DIBEL scores, and they are improving. You could also look at our iReady scores and the growth through iReady, and then, of course, the MCAP scores. Once that is established, I know that MCAP, because of the pandemic, has been, MSD has been in a state of flux recently because of the pandemic, but once that is established, I think that we can look at those scores and the iReady and the DIBELS data points, and also our formative assessments in our schools. We get very specific to the student progress within the schools.
I'm also wondering if you think there'll be any surveys of families. I feel like maybe more so than any other curricular area. I I would think parents will be like, I don't know, acutely aware of how much their child is progressing in reading. And I think science of reading has been such a topic in the public. It would just be interesting to see if parents are satisfied with the reading instruction, and if they've seen any changes, maybe, not sure if that would work over the grade level, but perhaps from when their kid was in lower elementary to upper elementary. Are there any surveys planned for
I don't
families?
think we have anything in our system-wide survey specifically narrows in on that topic. There are some questions around curriculum and engagement and being challenged and those types of things, but we don't have anything specific in science of reading.
I think it would be great. I feel like that is, to me, that's probably the most, I would say the most important curricular topic to engage families in and see what they're seeing from their child.
Well, I'd be curious, I mean, it's a good point, Mr. Bass, but I'd be curious what our school administrators and our literacy specialists are actually hearing directly from families.
Yes.
A lot of schools do like a literacy night where they have families in, teach them about the programs, those types of things. We could certainly see if that might be the first quick way to gather some feedback on what they're hearing from their school communities. You know, parents will typically call and share with the school long before they'll call down here to the central office. And then I could pass on your sentiment related to survey and whether or not we could work a question in. I'll share that with those folks that handle that. Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to add, Mr. Bass, about your question about evaluation of how it's going. Great question. And just for everyone, including the public, to remember that we're very early on in a 5-year adoption. So Open Court that you asked about, we are 4 months in to year 1 implementation of Open Court. And as Ms. Ralston said, this is an evidence-based strategy, a research-based strategy for us to adopt a high-quality resource. That's going to be implemented for 5 years, stabilize the curriculum for teachers, and make equitable what students are accessing. So the shift to HQIM also allows us to move away from teachers kind of picking and choosing based on what's provided in the curriculum to a much more comprehensive approach to teaching English language arts. That really is the foundation of what we think we will see in student results long term. So I just wanted to emphasize how early on we really are in the adoption of the program that Ms. Ralston mentioned.
And I would echo that, Scott, that if you were to talk to schools about how they're doing with their Into Reading implementation, which they did a full year of last year, I think they feel much better about how things are rolling there. And now we're learning again Open Court. So I suspect if we were to come back with another annual update next year, we're going to have more information about how that Open Court implementation is going. And to Mr. Murphy's point about kind of equitable, what are kids accessing? So we know that we can teach the program to the 25 students that are in front of us. But for all of the, if you met 25 students, then you've met 25 students. They're all very different. And so one of the things that we're getting ready to engage in a multi-year approach is what we're kind of tentatively terming an instructional equity collaboration, where curriculum folks will be working with people in special education, the multilingual learner program, advanced academics, and our equity department to look at how are the materials being received by students. Do we need to point out to teachers those additional supports that the vendor has already put in for students who are learning English at the same time they're learning to acquire reading? Are there materials that allow us to enrich students who are advanced learners and are already mastering components? Are the materials themselves as culturally responsive as what we would hope they'd be? And so having central office and school-based folks in those roles looking across our materials to make them as robust as we possibly can for all learners is a multi-year project. That's, the vendors come with a lot of stuff already put in there. They've given some thought to that. But here in FCPS, we want to really leverage the knowledge of our central and school-based folks to make sure these materials really come alive for all students, not just for some.
Briefly, you called that instructional equity.
Collaboration.
Yeah. I just love that it is taking away silos. I think that's been an emphasis in the district recently. I think under Dr. Dyson's leadership and really, really glad to hear this.
Yeah, I think it's, we've always had some components of that. This is probably the first time that we've looked and stepped back. So I'll give you an example. Last year in our Into Reading, Ms. Ralston worked with the multilingual team to really look at a crosswalk between the Into Reading materials and our SIOP strategies that we use for multilingual learners. So there's one example of how this work does happen naturally, but we really want to step back and be more deliberate and more methodical for all learners. And so it'll be a multi-year project, but it'll launch this spring. It'll be, things that we work on in our curriculum workshops over the summer. We'll be getting feedback from our teachers in the field. Hey, these materials are great for most kids. What do you need in addition to help meet the needs of those multilingual learners who are in front of you? And we feel an obligation to make sure that teachers have that at their fingertips. And so that's the design by what we're trying to do.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about ELA?
No.
So we're going to release Ms. Ralston to roam the planet because we have some other activities that she needs to get to. So thank you, Jen. I do want to thank Jen. Jen has been a huge asset for us since 2019 when we picked her up. And she's brought a lot of science of reading knowledge in that was much needed in the district. And I thank her every day for her efforts. But thank you for presenting today, Jen.
Thank you.
Yep. Enjoy your afternoon.
Well, good morning, Mr. Bass and Mr. Jay. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Liz Matheny. I currently serve FCPS as Secondary ELA Curriculum Specialist, and I'm new in this role as of July 1. So I just passed the 6-month mark in this role. So pretty fresh, just like you to C&I committee.
Yes.
So I'm excited to talk with you today about how I onboarded into this role and how it's informing our decision-making and supporting teachers and students. With the July 1 start, I emphasize meeting with every secondary school principal between July and August to get the lay of the land of their teams, their students, their community needs as it related to ELA instruction as well as literacy. Those visits were incredibly informative for me to help me understand what professional learning I might be able to provide at our curriculum days or through school-based ALP, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Then during first term, when students were back in the building, I prioritized visiting every single secondary ELA classroom. There are 280 of them, give or take. So we were very busy, but it was wonderful to see all of our students that we serve, all 26,000 of them at the secondary level, and all of the teachers in action. That was also deeply informative to our work moving forward. So after the first term, we've been very present in schools through supporting the accelerated learning process. We have facilitated and engaged with departmental retreats, both at the middle school and high school level. We provided entire staff professional learning with a focus on student achievement and literacy development as it relates to the science of reading, and really making sure that once, just like Ms. Ralston said, once their students leave a very rich ELA experience in grade 5, we're bridging that to middle school. And then we're bridging that experience from 8th grade to 9th grade.
I know very little about the accelerated learning process. Can you say more about that?
Sure. So the accelerated learning process is a homegrown model in FCPS that really focuses on leveraging teachers' efficacy and collaboration by progress monitoring student data, common formative assessments, and collaborative planning to ensure that teachers are considering the factors and in their planning to help with student achievement.
Okay.
So one of the things that's important about ALP, and I'll certainly ask Mr. Vetter, Dr. Vetter to weigh in a little bit, as I believe you were a co-chair of the development of the ALP process. So basically, the team really come through the research about what practices really make a big difference when it comes to teacher advocacy, and how do they collectively work together to know what to do to really help students. And so the model's in place in our schools, and it looks at multiple areas. For instance, like what's the role of student agency? How do kids have some agency in their own work? And so you'll see that manifest. I was just in a classroom, and we went in and we were talking to the teacher, and I said, what's going on today? Well, all the students are setting their goals for their academic growth today. So they were taking agency with what they have. We look at how we see evidence of what students know. And so teachers can analyze whether it's in mathematics, we're looking at how students are doing in a recent assessment, a formative assessment. We might be looking at data related to Dibbles or iReady or even classroom-based. So there's a component of that. Building content knowledge, you heard Ms. Ralston and Ms. Matheny talking about building teacher capacity to understand the content standards, what's there. And then instructional design. How do we, now that we know this about a group of kids who are having a challenge, mastering certain concepts, what do we do instructionally different for them? And when teachers get in conversations, certainly led and supported by their administrators or their content specialists, like their literacy specialists or the math specialists in the building, that collective problem solving around student learning, it really does make a difference for what happens in our classrooms versus teachers, again, in silos, 4 or 5 teachers working on their own, trying to figure it out on their own. This process comes together. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's a great summary.
Okay. All right. I get 2 points today.
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3.
Hey.
Okay. So I don't know what your availability is, Mr. Bass, but if you ever have an opportunity to see a high functioning ALP team in the building, it's worth the time and energy to drop in. It doesn't take a ton of time. You could probably take an hour and a half out of your day. But if you're ever interested in that, you could probably reach out to me and I could hook you up with somebody to get you to a school to see that happening.
Very much so. Let's connect after the meeting.
Great.
I guess one other important thing is it is one of our most important drivers for accelerating learning in the school system. And we believe it's so important that we invested heavily over the past couple of years to really make sure that teachers become experts in this process.
Excellent.
All right.
So just like Ms. Ralston mentioned about the science of reading, throughout my school visits and classroom observations, speaking with principals, we really saw a trend as far as needing to support teachers with foundational literacy practices to support students. Part of this might be from the pandemic, but it was a need that we observed and heard very clearly from principals. And so with my understanding of the science of reading and my training, we have taken action steps that we are building for our comprehensive literacy plan right now for MSDE, but also at the school level, how do we onboard secondary teachers to the science of reading when typically that conversation is anchored at the elementary level. But we know that the science and the research really contributes to lifelong reading habits. So one of the things that we've done is we've ensured that all secondary ELA teachers at their August curriculum day had a foundational understanding of the science of reading that was provided from our intervention team. We also wanted to make sure that teachers understand what this looks like in practice day to day with students. And so we've helped them extend and enrich their understanding of core strategies like strategic vocabulary and stretching, accessing and building background knowledge, those practices that bring science of reading to life day to day. We've also been auditing our instructional materials to make sure that the science of reading is a through line in our instruction and in the text that we select for students and how we onboard students to those texts. So as we've worked with the science of reading and really considered where we are as secondary ELA, we have quite a few professional learning priorities. So with literacy specialists, we have a literacy specialist in every secondary building, and they are truly a literacy leader for all teachers and all students. Some of them provide some of our structured literacy interventions. Many of them coach teachers across the content areas. They support the school improvement process and the accelerated learning process. But our literacy specialists are ones that we know they have an influence on every teacher and every student in their building. And so what we have done, speaking to breaking down silos, like you mentioned, we have ensured that their monthly meetings are anchored in science of reading practices, but are also supported cross-departmentally. And so you'll see on the slide, there's a list of other teams that support these literacy specialists every time we meet. From our multi-education team, that is a regular resource for us, as well as our intervention team, advanced academics, our innovation team, and special education. Every month, not only are stakeholders from those teams present at our meetings, but they're typically facilitating part of the professional learning. And so that not only builds our literacy specialist capacity, but it also ensures that every student in the building, regardless of what their needs are, the literacy specialist has the capacity to support them. We also have been supporting the ALP process. Just like Dr. Cuppett mentioned with our universal screener with iReady that continues from grades 6 through 10 at the secondary level, as well as our Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, otherwise known as NCAP. We provide these consistent data reviews to inform teachers as far as where their students are and then what they might need to consider doing next to accelerate that individual child's learning. We would not be able to do any of the things listed on this slide without my incredible teacher specialist, Christy McGrath, who's not here today. She's actually out of the school right now. But she is really a lifeline for teachers and staff and teams in helping them have common scoring experiences to make sure that they're utilizing the rubrics available for MCAP to see where their students are, to make sure that that vertical teaming is happening.
And so I do want to point out, every time she refers to our team, it's been helpful for our team. It's two people. That's the team right there. So her and Ms. McGrath. So anyway.
We are strong, small but
Yes,
mighty.
right.
And we've also been really helping teachers build their capacity in their iReady data literacy and the tools that come through iReady that we can use for strategic tutoring or small group instruction.
Yeah. Are there any formal or informal ways to see the effectiveness of this professional learning, both in student data, but also in staff satisfaction?
Sure. So we actually survey literacy specialists at the end of every meeting. We pose the same questions, to be honest, so we can progress monitor over the course of the year as far as the professional learning was related to, their jobs to be done at school. That they feel that it helped them grow as a professional, that it allows them to speak to other student needs that may not be part of their day-to-day interaction to build their capacity. So we survey teachers or literacy specialists at the end of every meeting, as well as teachers as they engage with our countywide curriculum PL that is, like I said, anchored in the science of reading.
Excellent. Thank you.
So part of the work of my teacher specialists and I have been really focusing on school-based support and collaboration. As I mentioned, we visited all of those classrooms and all of those schools in the fall, and that really helped us look for opportunities for collaboration amongst feeder patterns. And so I do want to highlight the Brunswick feeder pattern. When my teacher specialist was working with that team during ALP with some norm scoring for our benchmarks and MCAP preparation, the 8th grade team advocated, I would really love to see what high school is like. It's been a long time since I've been in a high school. And so we were actually able to coordinate with the support of their principals, the 8th grade team visiting Brunswick High School for an afternoon. They visited pretty much every available English class during that block, which included on-grade English 9 through dual enrollment. And so that really helped forge a relationship between those teams of teachers to ensure that that transition that we know is really pivotal for student success between 8th and 9th grade be a little bit more smooth. And I know that there's additional collaboration that's coming out as a result of that. We've also
Would you mind just really for the public to say what we mean in educational jargon by norm scoring with benchmarks?
Sure. So we have multiple teachers teaching different courses, right? And so what that means is we have a few sample student papers. We gather around a table, we read the same student papers, utilize the rubric that we're using to score those papers, and we individually score them, and then we discuss the scores to make sure that we're analyzing the student response similarly and consistently with the rubric. It's incredibly valuable for all teachers to engage in that work, but also our early career teachers who are new to the field, helping them calibrate themselves and their understanding of where students should be in an age-appropriate way with their colleagues. We've also been supporting West Frederick Middle School and Windsor Knolls Middle School strategically with our multilingual education program. This is extremely exciting work for me and for us, I believe, in these schools. And what we have been doing is alternating months where we provide PL to these schools. And so the through line of all of this professional learning for multilingual students and truly all students is the science of reading. And so what that looks like is my teacher specialist and I will spend a day at both of these schools supporting the entire staff with an element of the science of reading. And then the next month, the multilingual teacher team comes in and supports that same staff with the SciOp lens on that specific focus of the science of reading. And so these two schools specifically have really led the way with implementing the science of reading and research-based practices with their entire teams this school year. As I mentioned, we've been supporting departmental retreats and supporting school-based out. So from this work in visiting classrooms, working with teams of teachers, listening to principals, our next steps are continuing our high-quality instructional materials adoption and implementation for FCPS. As you heard from Ms. Ralston, high-quality instructional materials have been implemented grades K through 5, and now what comes next for those students in their education, middle school, right? So right now we have we concluded the work of the textbook review committee in November. To review potential comprehensive programs for middle school language arts. The committee determined 2 to move ahead for further review. These HQIMs really focus on strong tier 1 first instruction for students. They are very rich in rigorous, complex texts that align to our Maryland College and Career Readiness standards.
Say again, HQIM.
High quality instructional material.
Okay,
Yeah.
high quality instruction material.
And
Good.
just, Mr. Bass, that's becoming a term of art in public education
Yeah.
around materials that are reviewed, that they have an evidence base, that they account for some of the things that we were talking about. Are they designed to try to meet the needs of all learners? Are the images and the stories culturally responsive? So HQIM initiatives have occurred in multiple states across the United States. Tennessee and Mississippi are 2 of note. One of which was the state that the current interim state superintendent had been the state superintendent. So our current Dr. Wright, that's right, Dr. Wright, yeah. It was the state superintendent in Mississippi. They had done an HQIM implementation across their state to ensure that kids have high quality materials in front of them.
Yeah.
What the research is saying is when you do that, you're going to get a positive gain just by placing them in there. And then of course you have to train teachers and you have to have these ongoing monitoring processes like ALP, but it's worth the time, energy, and money for a school district to make sure high quality materials are in front of students. Maryland is engaging in a high quality instructional materials adoption as a state. So I went maybe beginning of December to a meeting with all the chief academic officers from across the state. We were receiving an update from MSDE about the HQIM implementations. Maryland Leads Grant was designed to get HQIM into schools. And so all districts across Maryland are looking very closely at this. And I would say the vast majority of districts have adopted HQIMs at the K through 5 ELA because that's where the Maryland Leads funds were. And many districts are now moving on to the next logical step, which is to get them in the middle school. So kids leaving an environment where they have HQIM are going to land in an environment where they have HQIM. Yeah. Another acronym to learn in public education.
Well, and it's been used, but yeah, just wanted to make sure I could define it.
And the blueprint work really speaks to HQI as well as part of our blueprint work. Right now, I know the slide says public review of programs is scheduled, but we are in the thick of it as of this past Monday. And so all of our 2 programs that we have up for public review are currently at the library through next Tuesday for public feedback. And so stay tuned for more information based on the feedback we've received. The other thing we've been field testing this year as it relates to HQIM is the iReady Reading Personalized Instructional Tool. Ms. Ralston talked about that with grades 3 through 5, how schools have a choice between Lexia Core 5 and iReady. At the middle school level, iReady is the option that we are field testing this year, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive from teachers. This is a personalized instruction tool that leverages the screener that students complete at the beginning of the year to personalize a pathway to close instruction or close gaps within their reading. Teachers have been very positive about this tool because it allows them to differentiate and work with small groups of students at a time to ensure that they're meeting the needs of every student in their classroom. And so they've been very excited about that. So I know that that's a lot of information, but that's the lay of the land in secondary ELA for the last 6 months.
And maybe just last point, back to HQIM, and our goal to adopt a program for middle school. I think we've said it, but to say it explicitly, these programs are also cost dollars. They are used across the country. They are developed by high-quality curriculum publishers. They are researched and externally validated. But it does require us to allocate dollars to be able to do so. And so, as you know, we're in a fairly tight budget season. And so, you know, our ability to speed up or go slow, you know, in many ways, you know, relies on the dollars. So we're planning for various contingencies.
Well, you, Dr. Cuppett, I think you were saying that there's a movement at the state to adopt these high-quality instructional materials. And are you saying, in the best of ways, that Frederick County is trying to be ahead of the state in this?
Well, I would say that, I mean, I think if the state was sitting on a giant pot of money that was gifted to them, they would push it to school districts quickly because I think they understand that many of us have already been in this process. Maryland Leads was a big driver for that across the state. So, yeah, I mean, they have produced for us some early criteria for what makes an HQIM, because one of the areas that they're open to is if a district isn't necessarily going to purchase something from a publisher, but feels that they have created their own HQIM, then there's a way for them to evaluate and vet that. So they're kind of leaving the door open for that. But I'd say we are a little bit ahead of the state in that we've been able to make some purchases with some increases in textbook funding over the last couple of years. We've added HQIM and mathematics grades 3 through algebra 2. Probably not many districts have been able to commit to that many grade levels, and we'll implement in K through 2 mathematics for next year. So that's 2 very significant programs that we've been able to put in place. So I don't know if we're that far ahead of them, but we're a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it'll be important to discuss that more during the budget process, and I'm excited to hear, yeah, where you think we need to, to hear the investment that you think we need to make in these instructional materials.
Absolutely.
I have a general question, just every so often, it hasn't been frequently, but every so often a parent will email with kind of surprised that their child is not reading more books in secondary ELA. And I mean, I'm well, one, I'm typically not responding to that. Typically the board president will, but I'm actually, you know, how would you evaluate that critique from some families?
So our curriculum is anchored in the College and Career Readiness Standards. And the breadth of those standards really require students to engage with the comparison or contrast of multiple texts at a time to really synthesize how different techniques are used by the author in order to convey an argument, a message, etc. And so the nature of our standards leads to more brief text or essay structures.
Yeah.
And as a result, teachers might rely on shorter text more frequently. That's not to say that teachers cannot use novels. They can, right? I do think it's a little bit of a paradigm shift that when we're trying to ensure that students have a well-rounded ELA curriculum and really develop skills in a lot of different ways, that might shift how we're utilizing text compared to previous experience.
Yeah. I mean, sounds like there's good strategic reasons there. There might be value in all of us, including board members, thinking about how to frame that really positively around the skill set that students are learning, and that ELA may look different from when we were in high school, that there will likely be fewer novels read, but that there's still just such a strong skill set that students are getting. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, those were my questions.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate you engaging with your new role as robustly as you did. I know you spent a lot of time in schools, and that was very important. And our colleagues in the schools appreciated that. And so she's a curriculum specialist who's hit the ground running. We want to thank you for your time, and thanks for being here to present today.
Thank you.
And you're free to run the plan. All right.
Looks like next is 2.02, our science updates.
All right. turn it over to, I'll introduce Dr. Chris Horn. He's our elementary curriculum specialist for science. And Ms. Colleen Beal is our secondary curriculum specialist in science. They're going to give you a K through 2 update. And I think we're going to have some information in here probably about outdoor school and ESSL as well, which are 2 programs that Colleen supervises our outdoor school program and Chris supervises our ESSL, which are both, I think, really gems in the crown of FCPS, that we have a facility like ESSL and we have the robust programming that gets kids out into the great outdoors to learn about all things sciencey. So I'll turn it over to both of them. Thank you. Right click. Or left click.
To click off
Oh,
there. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Good morning. I'm Colleen Beal, and I'm happy to be here this morning to talk a little secondary science with you. Some of our curriculum highlights. The first thing, I'm happy to report that science is really returning to that pre-pandemic feel. We have a lot of active classrooms doing labs, but one of our focus areas has been rigorous three-dimensional aligned instruction. We have been shining a light on the evidence statements, making sure that all of the teachers are robustly covering all 3 dimensions of the next generation science standards. So the science engineering practices, the clustering concepts, as well as the disciplinary core ideas. We have a new high school elective that students will be signing up for shortly for next school year, the advanced science topics. It is our first 0.5 high school elective in a while, and it's a really unique course. Very excited about it. We have it so that a student could take it for 1 term as a 0.5, or they could take it all year. Not all year. Ooh, that would be a lot. They are taking it for 1 semester because our teachers, when we were developing this course, they came up with so many fascinating topics that we have enough to choose from to do 3 topics term 1, a totally different 3 topics term 2, while still hitting a topic of physics, physical science, earth science, and life science each time, while the student gets to explore their own interest at the same time. So I'm very excited to see how that evolves in the school. And I'm getting a lot of excitement and buzz right now with that. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about that as it unfolds.
Has it been implemented or it will be?
It will be. It has
Uh-huh.
gone through all of the approvals, but kids are signing up.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that. It complements, we have quite a few high school electives, because you talk to me, I think they should fill their schedule with science. But we have dual enrollment offerings, advanced placement, forensics, which is wildly popular, as well as anatomy and physiology. So I'm hoping that advanced science topics is wildly popular too.
Great.
And during summer curriculum writing, one of our big areas that we focused on were revising our local benchmarks. And we were focusing on cognitive complexity to mirror that of the Maryland Integrated Science Assessment. And also drilling again down to the evidence statement, because when we first created them, we didn't have as much information, we didn't have as much experience. It's time to go back and take a look at them. And they are being administered. Okay. Then, along the lines of that was local assessment, state assessment. As you are well aware, the MSc requirement of an end of course exam is in biology. And that started with our incoming 9th graders this year. But we only have a handful of 9th graders that are in biology. Biology is typically a 2nd course for us. Freshmen will take physics of earth and space or algebra-based physics. And so the majority of our students will be next year as 10th graders with the EOC requirement. But it will be, the MESA will be 20% of the students' final grade per MSD. And 8th graders also take MESA, And it's a little bit different in that in 8th grade, when they take MISA, it evaluates 6th through 8th grade standards. So it's an end of band assessment, while the MISA in high school is assessing biology, the life science. There we go. We've been very busy with professional learning and student programs, and the lead is Carrie Crawford, is the secondary science teacher specialist, and is amazing. It helps us do all of these great things. We are really happy to be hosting our January 17th Curriculum and Service Day. Very excited to have that back. We have a very robust schedule, a lot of choice for our teachers. We also partnered with the multilingual education team, and they are starting us off with an address to all of our secondary science teachers. And then we're going into some choice sessions, and we've partnered with, we have a lot of teacher leaders stepping up and sharing their talents, as well as community partners. And we're ending with some collaboration time. We also offer after-school professional learning communities, book studies, department chair meetings, just a variety of ways to meet our teachers. And we have been very busy out in schools, supporting our early career teachers and departments, doing things similar to ELA. We have visited all of our science classrooms. We also are spending a day in every school, we call it Science Office on the Road, where we are visiting the classrooms, supporting ALP, talking to teachers during planning, because when you're right there with them, you have much better conversations, things that they've been meaning to email, meaning to ask. We've been talking a lot about rubrics. We adopted a new three-dimensional rubric that is based off of MISA and reflects the 3 domains of NGSS. We've been implementing that. We've been doing common scoring of the benchmarks using that rubric. It's just a variety of things. We've also been supporting department retreats. We are also supporting green schools and school sustainability efforts. We have a workshop coming up in February. We've partnered with Mobilize Frederick. Very excited about that. They have, through some grant funding, are able to supply kits for student action projects. So the menu with that, we're going to be having some, bluebird houses and different things going on with that. But green schools and school sustainability efforts. Our Women in Science and Engineering, our WISE Club, is growing by the month. We have a wonderful, diverse group of female STEM professionals that come out once a month. It's a high school club, which is all of our high schools, and our attendance is growing, and our base is growing too, so that is very exciting. It is almost science fair season, which is, I'm sorry if you hear the little lilt in my voice, I love science fair. I love everything science, you have to be true. But science fair is around the corner. We have registration open. It closes March 3rd. And we will be back at Tuscarora High, like how I just slid that right in.
March 3rd.
And,
I'm right in there.
and so we will be out at Tuscarora High and judging from 9 to noon. Our middle school winners have an opportunity to advance to a national competition, the Thermo Fisher Junior Innovator Challenge. And we had a student last year from Frederick County advance to semifinalists. And then our high school students advanced to the International Science and Engineering Fair. And our 2 teams last year that advanced were wildly successful in Dallas. So we're looking forward to just the interaction of the kids presenting their own research and interacting with all of our community partners and judges. We also are starting to get ready for our Envirothon competition, which is a high school competition. And most of our high schools send a team, and we are right up there at Cunningham Falls State Park. We have a lot of community partners that help us with that. And we have practice in March, and it's typically a little cold, a little snowy in March. It's much better in April, but it's lovely because you're out in the mountain. And so those are some highlights of our professional learning and student programs.
For the Ys,
Yes.
do all 10 high schools have individual chapters, or is this a countywide initiative?
This is a countywide initiative.
Which anybody from any high school can participate. So when she said it reaches at all high schools, any high school is eligible to come to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we advertise it far and wide and welcome everyone that would like to come.
Nice. And so like one month they might meet at Frederick High School and another month they might meet at Walkersville High School?
But great question. We actually do it centrally, and we meet at the Earth Space Science Lab,
Yes.
which is a fabulous place. And thanks, Chris. It is terrific. And with our meetings, how it normally works is we have a little icebreaker, but it is, we know our audience so we're trying to, kids from across the county are getting to know each other. They're all united with their love of science. So we have a low stress icebreaker. And then the majority of our time is a female STEM professional talking about their career and path. And then time permitting, we have a little activity. Like we built space landers, just like cool little engineering things. And then we also have fabulous STEM themed prizes. The socks are very popular as well.
STEM themed socks.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, as well as the stuffed microbes, which is.
I want to know more about the socks. I don't know about the socks.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Dr. Horn will be coming to our next meeting.
Excellent.
And outdoor school, as Dr. Cuppett said, outdoor school is one of the programs that I supervise. Outdoor school serves all of our students in grades 5 and 6, and it meets a lot of our environmental literacy standards, addresses our essential curriculum, provides a meaningful watershed educational experience, for 6th grade students. And if you've ever talked to any of our graduates, they all talk about outdoor school. They are out there today. They were not out there yesterday. The outdoor school pushed into classrooms yesterday. We did not have them out in the 4th grade. But last year, I have some stats there for you. We have a little bit of reduction in the 5th grade program this year, simply due to capacity limitations. Our system is growing, as you know well, and we just ran out of days. We prioritize 6th grade, and they go in the fall and spring because of the weather. They're doing water studies and everything like that. And then 5th grade is more geology. We hike Sugarloaf Mountain. We're still hiking Sugarloaf Mountain. That is on the full day. We're also taking advantage of a lot of our partners. So on their half day, they go to Fountain Rock Community Park, so Nature Center. So it's an amazing program.
Outstanding. Is the projection for next school year that again, the 5th graders will probably only have the 1.5 days?
Correct.
And with the direction headed, if there's no expansion to the program itself, because of the growth, the number of classrooms that increase, that'll probably drop to 1 day eventually.
But for next year, you might be able to maintain the 2 days for 6th grade and 1.5 for 5th grade.
It sounds like that's what we're going to be able to do. I do tell Colleen to caution the outdoor school staff not to overburden themselves too much. They're pretty creative at what they do. The one thing you don't have a lot is the flexibility. So the rain yesterday doesn't allow a school to reschedule when they go outside at a later time. The staff pushes in. There's just no other place to reschedule them to. So the program is like many of our programs. It's reaching capacity, and the only way without additional growth to do things is to start to cut services, so to speak. So that's why you saw the decrease from 2 to 1.5 for this year.
Thank you. All right. Last, but perhaps not least, elementary science. You can tell how enthusiastic Colleen is about science, and I am too, so we can make a good team. Lifelong science lovers and excited about what we do. You know what? That slide looks like,
You need to go back one?
I think so. Hold on.
Yeah, I think it went forward too, Chris.
There you go.
Phew. A close call. All right.
Before you begin, I want to say thank you all very much. I will see you all this afternoon. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, everyone who presented. Have a great day, you all. See you soon.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Jay.
Jay.
Sorry you have to miss the best presentation.
I believe that.
Just kidding.
It's
Have a great
recorded, Chris, so he'll be able to watch it at a later time.
Okay. So I started with a listed bullets of highlights, and some of these things are new things that we're doing. Some things are just things we've been doing for a long time. The first bullet just talks about summer curriculum writing, and I always like to, at these presentations, just say I am just so appreciative of what Frederick County has invested in the process of curriculum writing, especially summer curriculum writing, for the past at least 40 years. And it's amazing to me that so in a continued way, we've been able to maintain this kind of work where teachers have the say into the curriculum. I love the fact that our teachers work with us closely. They're on the front line. They give the input into how we build the curricular resources, how we organize the curriculum maps. And I think that's a huge asset and power that we have. So I appreciate our teachers and what they are able to just provide for us in terms of development. So I always feel like it's important to say that. And this past summer, we were really grateful that we had face-to-face curriculum workshops, which is something we missed desperately. The virtual worked, but not as well as the face-to-face interaction having the teachers collaborate. So again, in my list of various things to highlight, this is something that is relatively new. Over the course of many years, we've had science and social studies taking turns in the curricular space. And we have moved over the last 2 years to a more semesterized approach. So this is year 2 and the final year. So now at each grade level, curriculum is semesterized. K-2 has science second, social studies first 2 semesters, and vice versa for 3. Colleen already mentioned the Green School focus, which is new and exciting. We're working with Mobilize Frederick. Last spring, we had an interest meeting, which was very successful. We had 7 schools identified in September. So we're just a little bit ahead of the work that secondary is doing. We had a rollout of those kits in September for 7 schools, which was really exciting. And the Mobilize Frederick folks organized that. We just facilitated it through the Space Science Lab. And this coming March, just in a couple months, we're going to host another round of those interest meetings. And our goal is to work with them to continue to advance, make possible for schools to go through that Green School process and just find a path that historically for us has been a big struggle to try to support schools in that. They're on their own and it's a lot of work, and so more and more work's being done. Dr. Gall did a presentation in December to the board, the action steps of environmental literacy, and I'm sure you highlighted there. I didn't get to attend that, but you're highlighting a lot of the things that are going on with Mobilize Frederick and other aspects.
When you say the semester-based schedule, so in a typical elementary school classroom, would students be receiving science instruction Monday through Friday when it's their semester, or less frequently than that?
It's usually less frequently than that, but science occurs typically, although it varies by school, 40-minute sessions 4 times a week would be a typical description. Some schools have more, many schools have less. Here's a copy of the semesterized schedule I brought. And I can send you a link to that too, but it just gives you a sense of what they're doing. But in terms of the weekly experience, it is variable and much in the control of the school, how much they allow for that, and how they build science into their schedule.
Yeah.
Elementary science and social studies can be seen as on the periphery. So we try to
That's
build
my
great
concern.
resources so that it's irresistible. We want them to have a desire to use it, because who wants to miss that?
Exactly.
It's if it's crammed at the end of just 20 minutes of the day.
Right.
And I have, quite frankly, visited classrooms at the end of the day, and they're pushing until it's time to, like, the next thing you do is like clean up and pack your bags and go home. And at the end of the day, the kids are tired and the teachers are worn out, and the kids are like, "I love science. It's the best. This is the best part of the day." So we always appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Bass, the 4 days a week is typical, because if I'm a 5th grade teacher, I'm teaching science. On one of those days, I likely have a double specials.
That's right.
For my class. They're going to both art and music, because that's how we get in all of our art and music and meet the planning time requirements of the contract. So it's not atypical to see 4 days a week, just because structurally it's impossible because of the additional specials that occur in that schedule that day.
Well, that makes sense. I think in the longer term, either here at CNI or with the board, I'd be interested in ways that we can ensure that science and social studies are not shortchanged. I think that it's essential in so many ways, including, I think, in terms of student engagement.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that, Con. We agree. We'd like to do anything we can to continue to support the emphasis on science
Yes.
and social studies, but especially social studies will have their turn.
Next meeting, I think.
So I'm just gonna buzz through these. I know we're over time already, but just some highlights. Through funds Early Childhood received, we were able to design this summer and finalize and order. Now they're in the process of being shipped probably in February. Kits of materials for pre-K, which we do not have. We have kits of materials for grades K through 5, aligned to the standards, the state standards, and based on the transition to the next gen science standards. But pre-K at the state, they have not written a new curriculum in forever, but we've still been able to try to backward map from the new NGSS standards and do our best to support pre-K. But now, as pre-K is being more and more in the limelight, we're excited to get those kits in place. And then a new resource. This is our second full year with that resource, the Exploring Science text, which is a supplemental text and an opportunity to align with language arts and integrate with language arts. Been a great resource to have. So we're real grateful to have that. And it's a long-term process to find the funds for something. Our emphasis has been and will continue to be a hands-on approach, but the supplemental text was really important. The reason I mentioned the Living Materials Center, which has been in place for at least 40 years in our system, but especially in the times of post-pandemic, when our goal this year is to move back more toward hands-on versus the pandemic era science as a slideshow style. And the Living Materials Center provides materials, organisms, all sorts of infrastructure materials for teachers to order, unpack, and use in the classrooms. Which they also have kits, but those are school-based kits where they can get depleted. And in the case of the Living Materials, it's shipped in from the ESSL, from our team of Living Materials. So
Chris,
that's an important piece for us.
Can you give examples of some of the living things that are sent
Might
to
be
schools?
anoles, lizards, crickets, soil for the terrariums. Teachers unpack their things and set up. They have the terrariums at the school, and the crickets to feed them, to observe food chain in action.
Cool.
Yeah, and seeds, packets of seeds and soil and things like that. STEM Leader Program is in place a long time. We actually meet with liaisons for the schools for science, STEM, and social studies. And it's a collaborative process we do with social studies and also the STEM team and Aaron Lansman. And we meet currently after school 4 times. It's after school voluntary. We desire to get back to a place where we have those during the school day. Those are important liaisons for us. We offer training and resources for them, but they're our go-to person to have a connection with the school. And we provide funds for them to have just a little bit of support to run school-based activities, after-school clubs, or events like a science fair. And again, the after school, we have about a 50% of our teachers show up for those. But the ones that do, they're very enthusiastic, but people have busy lives and it's hard to get them out. And then the next bullet down is just an example of some of the groups we're working with at those STEM Leader programs where we invite in guests and have them available to give insight to what programs are available for schools and teachers. Colleen talked about assessment. For our part, the assessments that we have developed that are embedded into our curriculum maps are all optional. So we don't have ongoing collected data in that regard. So the data we do receive is from the grade 5 MISA, which is just like the middle school MISA. The elementary MISA is based on the standards of grades 3, 4, and 5. And we're just excited and proud that, you know, in many challenges, and like we talked about, science stuck at the end of the day, and the challenge of an assessment that covers 3 grade levels, we're 3rd in the state this year and have consistently maintained really competitive statewide.
There's only 2 counties in the state of Maryland with stronger MISA scores than ours.
That's right.
Outstanding.
If you want to know who they are.
No,
We got them in our sights.
We do.
Outstanding.
No, thanks. And we think that is an accomplishment, and we want to maintain that. And the reason I joke about who else is because we're always asking, like, and Dr. Gubbins asking, like, well, what did they do? How come they're better than us? How come we're not one? And that's in a good spirit.
Yeah.
You know, what's Howard County doing? What's Carroll County doing? So
You.
oh, is that one that? Sorry, we can delete that.
I was wondering whether or not. Yeah, I think my colleague teaches in Howard, so it's credit. Yeah, I mean, honestly, as a board member, my question would be if they're investing more funds in science, if they have stronger scores. So I would be interested.
We'd be happy to get you a summary of what we think that how their programs might be a little bit different than ours. Chris can find that out from his colleagues.
Yeah, we're in touch. You know, we meet with them. We're collaborative with them. We have our own smaller group of counties that meet together and talk about strategy.
You know, please understand, to me, this is an indication that our scores are strong. I don't know, my emphasis would continue to be how to ensure that the science curriculum is presented regularly and students are engaged, and it's great that we're in the top 3 in scores.
Yeah, and we do, you know, we're constantly seeking how to improve.
Yes.
Okay, couple quick programs that we just wanted to highlight here. The Great Frederick Fair field trip has been offered for the past 13 years, and this year was our largest turnout. This is the first year in the fall that we had to create a wait list and not take everyone that wanted to come. So that's a good problem to have. We're going to figure out how to solve that, how to offer more space or opportunities, but there's a huge interest. When we opened up registration in May last year, we were filled by the end of the day, first day, and started creating wait lists on day 2. So that tells us it's a strong program. And we've put a lot of investment over the time in continuous improvement for that, and have a huge number of volunteers from school system and also retired teachers. There's over 100 volunteers that are on the grounds to offer educational opportunities. So it's
So Chris, I would want to stress that point. When we get, obviously, Chris and his team are responsible for the planning that goes up to that, but the actual implementation, if you can visualize, probably, I don't know how many buses per day pull up on, what is that, East Patrick Street,
It's
on that
crazy
side.
there.
All of them, one bus at a time, to the tunes of close to probably about 1,000 or 1,100 kids per day, with all their chaperones and their teachers, and have them have a educational experience that's planned out and guided through the materials that they use, and then get them back on the buses to go home, and they all get on the right buses and go home. It's quite a logistics feat, and we probably have on any given day, just from our team, 10 volunteers a day, maybe,
Just from our department, yeah.
that we rotate through. And it's actually a really cool experience for our staff on our department, because they kind of get out of the office and get to go down and help with a signature event. So I do want to thank everybody, both on our team, in FCPS, and as well as our retirees or community members who help us with that, because it is quite a feat to pull off.
And just so I understand, it's not 5,200 students in one day. This is spread over
4
maybe
days.
5.
4 days.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what our capacity is logistically, and the most we can do is about 1,400 students a day, just getting them on and off those buses and safely. So we just want to make sure that everybody that wants an opportunity gets it. But that's, 5,200 students represents 1/4 of our whole elementary population. So we feel good with that. So the science fair is coming up for the elementary part. That's science and social studies fair. And we also have the STEM showcase, which is an opportunity for parents and kids and the students involved in the science fair to participate in hands-on activities. It's really a giant buzz of activity and excitement. So looking forward to that. It's our second year back from post-pandemic, so it's face-to-face. And last year we had huge turnout for both science and social studies. Expect the same this year.
Can you remind us, are there multiple locations for that?
We're all
Have
in
you
one
mentioned
place.
Tuscarora High
Yes,
School?
all-
Yeah, we're
Everything,
right down the hall.
Yeah.
Try
Stop
and stay out of your way.
awesome.
All right, we're back up and running.
Excellent.
I just had a bullet about the outdoor school, because it is one of those areas that's really important to our elementary program, and that program greatly supports the students' experiences that play into their, the fifth graders taking that MISA in the spring. So it's just another, so the students get that experience. So it's really important to us. I know Colleen oversees it, but it impacts us hugely in the elementary. So we always just want to say, whatever we can do to promote, continue to keep that program at funded as best as we can. If we can get the 2 days back, that would be really exciting. And I kind of segue that into the ESSL, because we see thousands of kids every year. It's a dynamic program. The staffing hasn't changed in many decades, and we do everything we can to support, but the system and the growth continues to press in on us in a way that makes it very difficult for us to accomplish all that we want to do with those students. Every single one of them as the county continues to grow. So we're kind of at that edge again, where what are our next steps if we run out of, who doesn't get to come? Or how do we do this to accommodate all of the students? So it's a question on the forefront of our minds, and just want to make you aware of that, representing the board of how can we continue to support the program at the ESSL and all that we do.
Yeah, but I want to understand that then. When our district was smaller, would elementary school students have gotten more opportunities to go to ESSL, like multiple days, and now it's one day? I want to understand how us as a growing district then the challenges?
Well, since 2009, when we moved into the new facility, the schedule has been that we invite, so that's been 14 years. I guess it's our 15th year. We invite every grade 1 through 5 student to participate in a field trip. And we have been doing that and supporting that, but the system's grown a lot in the last 15 years. And so it's creative scheduling. Dr. Cuppett mentioned just a minute ago about, if it rains or if it snows, there's no makeup time. So we have no wiggle room. We're doubling up classes. We have a retired teacher now working with us part-time. We hire to come in and help facilitate the additional groups. We have another contracted service with a retired scientist who runs our telescope for grade 5. We have non-benefited staff running the Living Material Center to help take care of the displays. So we do what we can to support this program, but we could use additional staff. It would allow us to open up more opportunities. And I thank you, Dr. Cuppett, honestly, because doing the best we can to support, given whatever we can by bringing in additional people to help. But it's just almost unreasonable now to keep doing what we're doing. It used to be a lot more flexible. Now there's not much flexibility.
It's like any program. If we're continuing to grow, we're projected to have X number of new classrooms next year. And so if they come in these areas of 1 through 5, then there are fewer slots available. But the number of slots are finite. The number of people wanting those slots continues to grow. And so that's one of the challenges we have with the same thing with the outdoor school and with the SSL. And so eventually we either make, for instance, one solution to work with the current capacity would be to pick one of those grade levels and deprioritize that, prioritize the remaining grade levels, and then if there are remaining slots, then open those up to that deprioritized grade level on a first come, first served basis. But what you're hearing from my specialists here, as well as those people that run those programs, they don't want to turn anybody away that wants to be there. And when there's a finite resource like this and there's not any growth for it, then sometimes turning people away is what ultimately has to happen. But I do want to commend both programs. They're very creative in how they go about scheduling. They do go the extra mile to make things happen. And we've put in some more temporary types of solutions to try to support those programs. But if we're going to continue to grow at the rate we are, those creative solutions are probably not going to get the same result. So a long-term plan might be something that ultimately we have to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's well said. I appreciate that because they do work really hard and they're very, very committed to providing the best experience for everybody. It's awesome over there. And I don't know if you've been over to visit, but you should come over. Come over next week. We have Winterfest next Tuesday. Yeah, so school's closed, so we're opening up to the community the whole day of shows and activities.
On the 16th.
Yeah.
They're very fun experiences.
Yeah. We'll try. Excellent.
Excellent. So a couple more bullets. Long-term person who worked at the ESSL for many years, Mark Bowman, passed away in the spring. And so to honor him, we at his funeral, working with his wife, people made donations to the ESSL. We got a large sum of money from that because there's just so much outpouring, and able to use those funds to create a special digital display, a hyper wall at the ESSL, and a little memorial for Mark there. But he's been one of the anchors to that program for many decades during a period of time when he and Jeff Brills worked together. And we also, Arbor Day is April 26th, and 20 years ago this year, Jeff Brills spearheaded the grant to get the Arboretum planted. We were out in this field, and it's like this field of sticks, and it's like, I don't I can't catch this vision. But now it's an amazing forest and it's so cool. So Jeff's gonna come up from Texas and be our MC at the.
Oh, really?
Arbor Day event. Yeah,
That's great.
yep. Still a little flashback, but it'll be nice to have him back. And
Well,
then-
if you want to go down memory lane a lot, Dr. Harris and I were both, oh, and Mr. Fritz.
Yeah.
We're all assigned to the old South Frederick Elementary.
Yeah.
Where the ESSL used to be
Christie.
attached.
And me, and
To the
yeah,
building.
we were all there together.
And so
Mark,
we
right across the
remember
hall.
it in its old school version of the program, and you could go do your walkthroughs, you know, in your own school, and then you could pop into the ESSL space because it was connected to the building to see that, oh, Ballinger Creek students were here, and they were enjoying the experience. So that program's come a long way with the new building and Arboretum, but it's great to hear Jeff's gonna come back.
Yeah.
Make sure that's on my calendar. So I
Oh,
can
yeah,
go.
for sure. Yeah, and last thing to put on your calendar is the solar eclipse is hopefully a sunny day on Monday, April, right after we get back from spring break. And so it's during the school day, but we're gonna have the facility open. We won't do regular programming with students. Instead, we'll have open to the public to come in and see some special things and then get them their viewing glasses to view the eclipse. So in 2017, we had an eclipse. It was in the summer, it was in August, and we anticipated, we didn't know what exactly to anticipate, but by 10 a.m., there were 1,500 people in line,
Wow.
standing outside waiting for their glasses, and it was pretty overwhelming. So we're working with the library. We have a meeting next week with them they're gonna help host and plan and try to make it a great event. So just wanted to highlight some of the fun things that we have going. And here we are, we're at the end.
What questions do you have about elementary?
Excellent work, and I think I asked my questions during the presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks for the time.
Me too. I think that our next item is simply future agenda topics. The next meeting is scheduled for February 14th. Looks like we'll hear from math and social studies.
And then we don't have any proposed changes for later in the year, correct? At this time? Yeah. Okay. So occasionally at this time, if we look further down in the schedule and I need to add something or something needs to be moved, this is when we would alert you to those changes. But at this point, the schedule looks like it's going to be in place as is, barring any change coming up in the next couple of months.
Referring, for example, to June 12th, when it says to be determined as needed, that a topic could be added there.
Well, and actually, that's gonna, I think, be something related to special education and curriculum work. So
Yes.
that topic might change in title a little bit. It's actually kind of pointing out the conversation that we were having earlier about this lensing curriculum from all learners. But when we originally had this conversation, it was coming out of the special education audit conversations and really making sure, and then we broadened that conversation to include not only students with disabilities, but our multilingual learners, our advanced academics, and then looking from an equity multicultural lens as well. So that title might change when we get down there, but we're really excited about providing that presentation to the committee. Okay?
Good. Well, thank you, everyone.
All right.
That concludes the meeting.
All right.
Adjourned.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you.